Just so the board's aware, we have a small victory tonight. We have YouTube Live working for the first time. So, way to go, Dr. Ross.
Way to go.
I think it's working. Seems to be. I can see it on
They've been watching on their smart TVs.
yeah.
Oh, boy.
Got to send out a search committee.
I was rushing, just not fast enough.
Okay, we will call the meeting to order. First, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Lucy, would you do the roll call, please?
Rich Martin,
Here.
Jeff Schneider,
Here.
Roger Tucker.
Here.
Ginger Shank,
Here.
Frankie Swartz,
Here.
Sarah James. Here. And Deanna Zwires.
Here.
We have a quorum.
The first item will be to amend or adopt the agenda.
Would we like to amend the agenda? Is that what, I don't know,
No,
we talked.
we're just gonna
we're
adopt.
Oh, okay, it's,
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes and we have an agenda. The next item on our agenda is board norms, and I know that you've made yourself familiar with them, but they're there on your computer for a quick glance to remind us and keep us on track during the meeting. Next, we have recognitions.
Yes, tonight we have with us Rebecca Boone Elementary School. So Rebecca Boone was named the Warren County Records Reader's Choice Award for the best school in Warren County. That's all of Warren County, all schools, not just public schools or private schools, all
That's
schools.
awesome.
So congratulations, Rebecca Boone, and winning it for the second year in a row. So, whoever wants to come up, come on up. We'll
All
get a picture
of
of
you.
you. Yeah.
Come on.
Big accomplishment. I guess there's Ginger here.
Don't get ready to roll front.
no.
No, okay.
Oh, and
it's
it's so
Great.
I know. I know. Awesome.
I know,
Okay, here we go, guys. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Let's do one more. 1, 2, 3. I think we got a good one in there.
I know when you walk back down. That was good. The tie even coordinates with the leash, which
He's
is
working
pretty
when he wears
impressive.
his tie.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay.
That's awesome.
That's so cute. They're all derailed.
I know. Nobody likes that. Look at that. Okay, Lucy, do we have any public comments tonight?
Anybody fill one of those out?
No. Okay.
Oh, wait.
You had to fill something out?
We have a comment form over here.
That's why you're so
This
quiet.
is first one. Christine. What's your name? No, just kind of.
Barton knows where I live.
One word.
Oh, we have a comment, look at that. Guy, would you like to step up and tell us?
I didn't write this down, and so this could be scary, because
Uh-oh.
at my age, I'm forgetting stuff all the time, so my mind just goes blank, and you can stare there for a while. But anyway. No, I come as a friend, unless Bart decides to make some comments, then we could have some problems. But anyway, and I talked to you about this. A couple months ago, I was reading in the Warren County Record that there's a possible bond issue coming, and they're talking about Daniel Boone becoming early childhood and building a new elementary school north of town. I said, wow, that sounds wonderful and great. And then they went on to say that now there might be some money left over from that bond, so we might be able to do something like a swimming pool or tennis courts. And I thought, well, that's good too. I'm all for all that stuff. But then I thought, well, wait a minute. I said, don't forget, we got fine arts there too. And we've been waiting for a theater or performing arts center for years. And I mean, classrooms come first. That's all there is to it. If you gotta have classrooms, you gotta have classrooms and everything. But I just wanted to put that in your ear that one of these days it would be nice to have a performing arts facility. I didn't know whether to come and say anything about it, but then I thought, okay, when we were building, or when we were planning the commons that we have now on the stage, I went to I went to the architect and I said, well, you know, that's all good, fine and good, but you know, if you move these bathrooms out of here, we could have a drama classroom, and which doubles as a green room for the stage, and then we could have a boys' dressing room, a girls' dressing room, a bathroom, and we could have storage facilities, and we could have a costume room, which actually we stole from the choir teacher because she was new, she didn't know any better. But anyway, that all came to pass. They put it all in. They moved the bathrooms across the hall, and we have a pretty decent, for the most part, facilities there. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I don't know if I said it right or not, but
That's pretty good.
so anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Yeah.
And your support, thanks.
Next, we have superintendent reports, library program evaluation.
Yes, we have some wonderful librarians here to talk to us. I'm not sure who's going to be the speaker, but
All of us.
All right, everybody, so come on up.
All come on up.
Good evening, school board. My name is Shelby Graves. I'm the Rebecca Boone Library Media Specialist.
I'm Sarah Jacobson, Warrenton High School Media Specialist.
And I'm Kylie Weber. I am Warrior Ridge's new media specialist. And we are missing tonight Lynn Mueller at Daniel Boone and Debbie Tobin at the middle school.
So the first thing we want to talk about is what CSIP goals we address in the library. And for elementary and middle school, we have goal number 2, which is 75% of all students in grades K through 8 will be reading on or above grade level or have achieved 1 year's worth of reading growth per year over the CSIP cycle. And I feel like our space can help contribute to achieving that goal.
And at the high school, we are working on Goal 1. The district will create a centralized location for health and well-being resources accessible to all stakeholders to support Warren County R3 students as measured by a deliverable resource, website hub liaison. Right now, I'm currently looking at purchasing ebooks because students feel more comfortable when it comes to social emotional learning, checking out books on their own doing, as opposed to checking it out with the librarian perhaps, some of those topics.
So the collection of materials within each library is ever changing in order to most effectively meet the anticipated needs of the students and the staff in our building. As curriculum, student interests, and current events evolve, so do the needs of materials within a library. Therefore, each library is continually purchasing and removing out-of-date and damaged materials so appropriate and relevant resources are available when needed. And that is done on a continual basis.
In 2020, the media specialist and Tia Etcher, ELA curriculum coordinator, worked together to rewrite the library curriculum. It was the first time since 2012 the curriculum was rewritten. As technology and literature adapts and changes with the current times, so should the curriculum. It was a very positive experience collaborating with each other, and Ms. Etcher. Missouri State standards, AASL standards, and ISTE standards were all used to write relevant curriculum, which is ultimately school board approved. And then we have our circulation totals, but I figure we won't go over those. Like, you guys have access to that, so we don't need to read you numbers. I can say that some of that includes, now that we've started one-to-one Chromebook circulation, and especially during the COVID years, and when students were more virtual, the high school was checking out, Chromebooks and laptops to students for some of their courses.
So the libraries have continued to evolve and adapt within the needs of its students and staff. Today's librarians are more than keepers of the books. Today's libraries are offering services beyond that of print and physical circulation. Our spaces are being transformed to meet the needs of students and staff, allowing for areas of collaboration as well as community. Instructional partnerships continue to develop and deepen as librarians work with other educators to enhance our curriculum, and students are being empowered to utilize digital tools that are curated and implemented as part of the learning process. Each librarian works to support the unique goals and needs of its individual building. The following successes, we're going to talk about a couple of things that we do in each of our buildings and things that we're proud of. So in all of our elementary buildings, I know we do weekly book checkout. I'm really excited about using 3D printers in our buildings, especially with 4th and 5th graders. And at Rebecca Boone, we put on a daily news broadcast 5th graders produce that we send out to the whole school.
Each of our schools also focuses on the building block nominees, the Show Me nominees, and the Mark Twain nominees that are throughout the state of Missouri. We also have book fairs twice a year. I know that Rebecca Boone just finished theirs, and Warrior Ridge is finishing theirs now. And I know Daniel Boone had theirs earlier on this fall. Warrior Ridge also has a genre-fied collection, and so we have our library set up within the genres of our books. And it has been wonderful and beneficial for each of our libraries to have the one-to-one Chromebooks in all of the elementary classes this year. And we also have the loaner Chromebooks kept in the media center. For the middle school, Debbie has asked for us to mention that she teaches Missouri Connections career class 3 hours per day. She also promotes the Mark Twain and the Truman Award books, and she manages and maintains all of their Chromebook carts, and then they're also one-to-one with the Chromebooks for all grades. And they collaborate, and she gets to collaborate and co-teach with the teachers as well.
And at the high school level, we promote gateway readers. And then a couple exciting things that we're doing. I know that, with the flex schedule of high school, where students just come and go as they please, and, you have to schedule with teachers for them to come visit. I do appreciate Mrs. Hunter and Mrs. Young of LA3 and LA4. They're kind of changing the way that they're teaching. And it's really requiring more readership of our students because they have to dabble with various different genres, and that is perfect for the high school because we are to by genre. So it's really enhancing the reading experience for students and giving them a variety of things to read. And that prompted me to create like a QR code form, and it really allows me to give a personalized experience because students are filling out surveys that give such interest, like, hey, what video games do you play? What hobbies are you interested in? What do you do outside of school? And I can piece that together and provide them a personalized PDF of what books you should check out next. So that's really helping out. And then I want to give big thanks to the Board of Education and Dr. Klingensmith and Dr. Jones and Dr. Ross. You know, for 2.5 years, I really struggled to play the librarian role because that's when one-to-one Chromebooks came. And there was a lot of help desk going on in my library, but I can say, and I should thank the technology department as well, but Mrs. Albertson has been amazing, and it has brought me back passions in the library that I've been able to focus on being a librarian again. And this is anecdotal, but for instance, with freshman orientation, I was not able to complete that until like last week, this time last year. Like I was doing freshman orientation about November 4th. I have been able to do much more of this curriculum we're talking about. I was able to complete freshman orientation in September this year. So I can't thank everyone enough for bringing a one-to-one Chromebook technician. It's been wonderful.
So in conclusion, the libraries and librarians of Warren County R3 School District are committed to developing and progressing our programs in the principal interest of our school communities. Investing in students, staff, and the overall school community, our library media specialists are dedicated to suggesting and providing materials, acting as instructional supports, and providing collaborative spaces. We strive to be the heart and the hub of our respective buildings. Are there any questions? Oh, wait, we have goals.
Yes, looking towards the future. We're going to continue to attain quality book resources to meet DESE library standards, including more diverse books to meet the needs of all students. Now we are looking into, a couple years back, Scenic Regional had reached out, and you know, with Chromebooks, I didn't really have time, but this year I am looking into that for all the librarians. There's this wonderful app called Sora where we can connect to Scenic Regional library materials completely free. So we are looking into how we can access those materials for our students. More access, obviously, better. And then middle school and high school could potentially become recognized as DESE exemplary library programs. There's an attachment on the document that you have there. And this is only attainable for schools that have a full-day flex schedule and library clerks.
So it's not attainable for elementary schools because ours is a fixed schedule. Okay, now we'll take questions.
I wanted to comment that I've watched the Rebecca Boone news. It is incredible. It's incredible what they're doing, and it's so inspiring to see how professionally they're taking it so seriously. And so I was really excited to see that. And I love hearing how you are handling the flex scheduling, because I honestly, as a high school student, I don't remember going to the library much. And so to hear how you are personalizing the experience for the kids to realize that, like, hey, yeah, you have to read for school, but there's still books that you actually want to read. They are of interest to you. And so thank you for thinking of how to plug them into things that they're going to be interested in, because hopefully that'll translate when they're in college or just growing into their adult careers, that they can still enjoy books, because it is such a way to escape or learn. It just sounds like you guys are setting these kids up all throughout their learning career to enjoy books. I love hearing what you guys are sharing.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Thanks for all you do for our kids. Looks like up next we have discipline/safety program evaluation.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Brad Ross, Assistant Superintendent, talking about student, staff, and school safety. Just summarizing here a little bit, because there definitely is a lot going on over the first quarter, and of course topically as well. But just diving right into it, the CSIP goal that we really focus on, at least in this CSIP generation, is goal to basically we want to increase the number of students in Tier 1. Tier 1 is defined as students that have between 0 and 2 referrals by at least 0.5% each year, as measured by the total number of discipline referrals. And there's a number of action steps taken. Our buildings have actually gone way above and beyond these, and I'm going to elaborate on some of that in just a minute. But collectively, we want to keep focusing on our PBIS and DCIB We're working with the Heart Missouri RPDC on that, along with the University of Missouri. And we're going to continue to work as a collective, administrators and our staff as well. But taking a look at this, the first thing that'll jump out at you is that our total number of referrals so far this year is up. I think it is important to remember that the last 2 years were both very COVID influenced. We had higher numbers of students attending virtually, and so there were less students on campus to receive referrals. So I do think that plays in it somewhat. But yeah, as you can see, we've got about 170 more or 160 more than we did at this time last year at the end of October. When you take a look at it over the map, what you kind of notice here is it's not necessarily that we had so much more. You can see that as a district we dipped under October last year. It's just they happened sooner. So I'm thinking that this is, students were able to come back right into the school experience. We didn't have any real COVID protocols in place like we did at the beginning of the school year for the last 2 years. And so as we see here, and like just looking ahead to November, I looked it up today, we're on pace to be just under where we were at in November last year. So we're just hoping that the behaviors just happened earlier this year. And it's nice to see that we were under that dip in October in comparison to last year. In terms of what we're seeing most when it comes to referrals, number one continues to be tardies. And this is really high school driven, just obviously the students are driving and things of that nature. And then a lot of the same usual suspects here, although we are seeing increases in ICOM, which, just to break down these acronyms for you, DDIS is direct disobedience, insubordination. ICOM is abusive language. I think at one point it would stood for inappropriate communications. Then truancy is TRUC, and then PHAG is physical aggression / endangering behavior. So those are what those stand for. And so we are seeing some increases in these top 5 from the previous year. And again, I meet with the assistant principals once a month, and they are really the ones that sort of spearhead discipline and the steps that buildings are taking. And they've really taken ownership of this and have really put in a number of different measures in order to combat this. And it's really interesting too, because when we talk about Tier 1, and I guess I'll move on to the next slide here. So when we talk about Tier 1, that's 0 to 2, it's a really tough goal for discipline because that's a status goal. Once you go past 2 referrals, you're never going back. We don't ever erase them. And so, with that, as soon as you cross that threshold, which we already have for this year, like our 22-23 goal, we would have been at 96.1%. Number of students between 0 and 2 referrals. And so we've already kind of crossed over that a little bit. But the primary driver of that, like I say, there's this real interesting dichotomy. There's this threshing effect, right at about 4 to 5 referrals. At 5 referrals, what we see is, I guess maybe you could call those, well, I don't want to make up terms here, but like those are going to be students that have a wide variety of behaviors. It's separate from those that have 4 or less, because at 4 or less, those students tend to have a lot of parties. And so, or at least it did on October 31st. And so that's we're kind of seeing that dichotomy there. So we see really 2 points of attack when it comes to how can we move or work towards reducing these referrals and reducing this time. But in the report that's online, if you just look at that 5, if you remove tardies from the system, we're well ahead of the goal as it is. So tardies are really the thing that we want to try to find a way to attack, and that seems like that could be, I don't know, at least the most bang for your buck, so to speak, as far as that goes. But this is still really encouraging. I mean, when you think that almost 96% of our students, have 0 to 2 referrals, like that's great. We are blessed to have a truly wonderful community here. Sometimes it's hard to see past the kiddos that get in trouble, but we really are blessed to be in this community. Action steps being taken, and I know this is small and I apologize for it, but I really wanted to throw up all the different things because our buildings are really doing wonderful things. We saw our therapy dog up here receiving an award earlier, so that is a step that one of our schools has taken that's really helped students that are accelerated. And so it's an interesting technique, something that we'll be looking at, the success of that. Our schools have reached out to other districts to see how we can incorporate different strategies that they have found to be successful. And I won't just read that list all the way down, But our schools have really leaned into the PBIS concept. Even the high school, which is not, PBIS tends to be associated more with elementary, but they've built this checkerboard, is that what it's called?
Bingo board.
Yeah, the W checkerboard. And so where, students are recognized for achieving different blocks within that for positive behavior. And so we're really kind of going into that. And the buildings are doing this on their own. They're breaking down this data and they are attacking it, on their own, which is wonderful. And I do think that we're going to dip and stay under that line as we move forward. The other thing that we'll need to focus on, of course, is the tardies, and I'm going to be bringing that up at the next DCIB meeting, which is just, again, where all of the discipline committee for the district gets together to try to strategize that as well. And it's not necessarily a part of the CSIP, but just some other steps that I wanted to bring to light when we talk about building and district safety. At the beginning of the summer, right as we were kicking everything off for the school year, we formed a safety committee to review the crisis manual. It's going to be something that we do annually from now on, and we invited representatives from our local law enforcement, from local fire department, and we sat down and we reviewed things like our intruder drills in order to become consistent as far as the language that we use during those things, the procedures that we use during those things, to set goals moving forward, all towards making our schools safe. We've invited Warrenton PD and all local law agencies to take walkthroughs through our buildings. I'll tell you what, our IT department really deserves recognition. They've been working with the Warrenton Police Department and the City of Warrenton. We're working to try to minimize reaction time to any sort of event through our new fob system. The Warrenton PD has cards that they can scan, and so we're working for a way that we can program our buildings into those cards. It's still a work in progress, but should they ever need to be there, they can buzz themselves right in, and so that'll be something, again, that once we have that in place, the police will be able to respond as quickly as they can. And then I also just wanted to take a moment to recognize the Warrenton Police Department because they're experiencing transition just like we are and everybody is. But they've remained committed to keeping 2 SROs in our district. And so Officer Plackmeyer back there, and we have Officer Moyer at the middle school. They've been outstanding. We're very fortunate to have them as well. And so we're grateful for the Warrenton Police Department for that. They were instrumental this week, in us addressing a situation, and it's got us working very hard to see how we can harden our main entrances to our buildings, and that's going to be something that we are focusing on in the near term. With that, ladies and gentlemen, that's what I have to share. Any questions you may have?
This is more of a comment, but when we were at the MSBA conference last week, we had one of the general sessions was about school safety, and MSBA isn't his name John McDonald, I think, who's at the office there at MSBA, who's working on school safety stuff, and maybe we'd want to look at having him or someone from his office come and help us kind of brainstorm and just see if he thinks of anything else that we could do to make the buildings safer and more secure.
For sure.
Because he work at Columbine at one
Correct.
time. So he's been doing this for a while and been really focused on school safety and security. So it wouldn't hurt to check into that. It's
Absolutely.
a resource, so, because we're all concerned about that. We want to make sure that the kids are all safe.
Thank you for breaking down the data, since sometimes you see a number, but there's so much more to it. And so I'm grateful to hear how much tardies is playing into us not meeting that CSIP goal. And so I look forward to hearing how you guys try to help get people on time. I mean, that's like a cultural.
When they need to be there.
Yeah, that's a cultural thing. Like, it could be a family dynamic. It could be it could be so many things that play into why you just didn't show up when the bell was ringing.
Absolutely. We look forward to the challenge.
I actually have a question on a similar note. What are is there a consequence? I guess it's a two-part question. Is there a consequence for tardies, and if so, what is it?
So there's a breakdown. Every administration sort of has their own sort of wrinkle on it. But yes, there are. I don't know exactly like what the steps are, how many tardies you receive, what consequence, and I don't want to misspeak or misrepresent. But there are, ranging from things from lunch detention to even academic reassignment, I think, for habitual offenders. But again, I don't want to misspeak for the high school.
No, that's fine. That's to Sarah's point, right? It's typically a habit that,
Yes.
whether it's a family or a specific person or whatever, right? Typically a habit, and
It's
if there's
tough.
no consequence, there's really no reason to get out
Or
of the
even if
habit,
there is.
right?
Well, my question was,
Hey, just in my experience.
Sure.
my question was along the same line as his, is I have lots of ideas, so if you need someone to sit on,
Hey.
as board representative to sit
Heck
on your
yeah.
discipline committee, I would love to be there. But my real question about the statistics though, are we talking about, when you're talking about tardies on those statistics, are you talking about tardy the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh hour, or are you talking only tardy to school?
Oh, all of it.
That's what I'm saying.
It's all of it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a hard thing, because
I mean-
then Blackhawk and Warrenton the kid had 7 opportunities to turn.
Correct.
Right.
Right, that's what I'm saying. If it was just first, if it's just first hour, then that's a total different dynamic than it is the rest of it.
100%.
I've got all kinds of ideas for second through seventh hour. First hour, that comes into the family dynamic and,
Sure.
and there's some other issues that we can look at there as well. But I look forward to talking to you on that.
How could we lose, Rich?
Well, and they were talking about, I don't know if this is, I guess since we opened up the conversation about where we went to the conference, I also went to that same, we were all at that general session, but I also went to the breakout and was moved to tears. The lady that was there with John and the principal from Columbine was a parent of one of the elementary kids at Sandy Hook that was killed. And it was just moving. And they just kept reinforcing, and this John just kept reinforcing that, to their knowledge, that they don't think that anybody's ever been hurt, and I'm not going to be quoted on this, that's been behind a locked classroom door. And that they say that is key number one. And I know a lot of us slack on that. It gets easy to slack on that, but again, when we're doing our trainings and stuff, we just got to keep reiterating that locked classroom door is the first level of success of safety. And I think that's the one thing I carried away from all those things that I went to up there, is just to remind us, you know, that, because I mean, we've all been there where, it's a burden because Johnny went to the bathroom, but it's important. And I know that we're doing everything that we can, and we're ahead of the game and trying to protect everything, but we just got to continue that. So.
Yeah, one of the things we talked about at our first annual meeting this past summer was points of emphasis during an intruder drill.
Right.
And so there were certain things that because as you know, law enforcement walks around with administration and checks the safety of each room,
Right.
Before we clear the drill. And so that is one of the things we check is the door closed and locked, are the lights off? And like I say, there's a small checklist of everything and we give feedback, to those
Sure.
teachers, sure.
Well, because she talked about cultural thing with tardies too, and it can be a cultural thing when it comes to safety too, that, I'm doing my part, or someone else is doing their part, but me, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna teach, come on kids, I'm gonna teach, we've got something important. No, everybody's gotta be on the same page when it comes to safety in that resort. So I appreciate all the work that you guys do in that, and keeping our kids and our teachers and staff safe, because it can't be overlooked.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have our financial update.
All right, yeah, just our normal monthly financial update here. Things are looking as expected. Just our fund balances here are up compared to last year. Revenues are about the same. Expenses are slightly less. And again, until the building project for the food service catches up, we're probably going to trend a little bit behind on the percentage of our expenses. And then once the building expenses happen, we'll be over where we were. So that's going to have an influence on that. Here's our chart that we look at every month. As you can see, it's much more of a straight line. There's no COVID funds coming into us this year to help us out. So you can see our trend line going down as expected, and then it'll bounce back up. And well, probably December we'll see a little bit of increase, and then it'll jump up in January. That's what we expect there. So here's just our revenues compared to last year. Locally, we're up. That's Prop C and then food service funds. Lunch money coming in. I know I'm spending a lot more than I did in years past, so we have county funds are about the same. State money's up slightly. Federal, of course, is starting to show a significant decrease there, but overall, we're actually up a little bit compared to last year. That's mainly due to local funds and Prop C. Expenses, we're up slightly compared to last year. Salaries are up just a little bit, benefits are up a little bit, we did get raises. Purchase services are down slightly, and supplies are pretty much the same. So everything's trending as expected, and our capital fund balance has bounced back up from last month when we were negative to the $725,000 that we have in the bank today. And we will, and that's just like all of our other funds, we'll get a big check in January from the county to see that number increase as well. So everything is trending as expected.
Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, then we're going to do the MSBA conference update. For those of us that attended, is there anything in particular that you wanted to share?
I tried to attend a couple that were about early childhood, since we've talked about that as a possible way that we would try to pass it on to help our early childhood program and other things in our district. And so I learned about funding opportunities, I learned about how they utilize tech, and I just jotted down a bunch of brainstorming ideas, nothing worth sharing right now, but just some cool ideas. And then a couple of us attended one that was about community engagement, and so it was wonderful to hear about how the Neosho School District had created a program for the community to come in and learn through a couple nights more about the district. And so it's always fun to hear what other districts are doing and how it's working for them, and try to figure out, well, does that just work for them, or is there something about that we can utilize? Because we definitely want to engage our community and want to educate our community and bring them in to see the great work that's happening and the needs of the district. And so it's cool to hear some new ideas.
I really enjoyed it. I went to many of the breakout sessions and had an opportunity to meet Jackie Joyner Kersey. That was kind of a highlight for me as well. I noticed that your dad said, "What a great athlete." And I thought he was talking about me, but he was talking about Jackie Joyner Kersey. I learned a lot, and it really kind of rejuvenated me and motivated me to remind myself of how important this position for our community is, being a school board member. And I appreciate the school district for allowing us to attend that, so that's very nice.
I'll second what Sarah had mentioned about the community engagement session. It was one of my favorites because it talked about building this relationship with both community leaders and parents, and just in kind of a fun way. So you're educating them, but you're also building relationships, so they get to know you and you get to know them, and it's just so much easier to communicate and have conversations when you have this positive foundation that you've built with people.
I sort of concentrated on teacher recruitment and retention. There were a lot of breakout sessions on that, and it's good to hear what other districts are doing. You get some good ideas and things that we might be able to put into practice here. So that was mostly my focus, I guess, because it's been a big concern.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
I move the approval of the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
A motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions about any of the items? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda? Okay, we're gonna do a roll call vote. Sarah?
Aye.
Deanna?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Roger?
I'll abstain.
Frankie? Aye. And I'll vote aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Old business, we have some policy approvals.
Yep, this one here is just a name change, and I appreciate Deanna letting me know that when the document downloaded, it took out any word that had an I and a T next to each other, took the I and T away, so a lot of nonsense words were in there. I think we've got them all figured out, so thank you, Deanna, for that help. But if you see any of those in the policy, we will not have those changes, it'll just be the name change only that we send off, so, but I do think we have it corrected now, but thank you very
It reads
much.
much better now.
Yeah, I'm sure it does,
It was kind of tough to read.
Right.
So the only question I had is that in order to have this policy be accurate, we must name someone. Because in my head, in an ideal world, we are naming a position, so that way regardless of who gets hired or something happens, then that position remains. Because otherwise we're gonna have to really make sure that we are on top of this.
Correct, and I think what happens is there are some policies you're supposed to name an individual, like
Yeah.
Title IX.
Yes, yeah.
And my guess is MSBA wrote the language in there as the district designates the following individual, so I'm assuming that this is the same. I don't know that for sure,
Yeah.
but that, just reading the way the policy is written makes me believe that they want a name of a person in there.
Okay.
I move to approve the policy as presented.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the policy as presented. Is there any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The policy is approved. Next, we have new business. And we have audit and
Right, so we were hopeful that the audit was gonna be here, it obviously isn't, so we'll have to push this back to next month. There's no concerns on the audit, we just didn't actually get the actual audit itself from the auditor, so we'll do this in December. That's not an issue, we do have to have it approved by December 31st, so as long as we actually get the paperwork, we'll be fine. But it did not, hasn't got here, so we'll have to wait.
okay, our next item is calendar.
Okay, so this calendar actually has some nuances that our other calendars in the last few years have not had. Mainly due to when holidays fall.
Yeah.
So Good Friday, for example, falls, and this is probably the bigger issue, falls on the spring break that's aligned with Washington spring break. We always align our spring breaks with Washington because that's where our VOTEC kids go, and so everyone has the same spring break at that point. So Good Friday is a holiday for us, and normally our calendar is 147 days showing, and this calendar actually displays 148 days because that's over that spring break time. And so now again, this is not this year, so don't get confused on winter weather, as hopefully we don't have any, but you know, if winter weather would happen, our first makeup day next school year would just be a traditional snow day. So essentially it's built in the calendar. So we wouldn't do anything, it would just be a day off, enjoy the snow sort of thing. And then so it'd be essentially a floating holiday in the calendar whenever snow would happen to make up for the Good Friday holiday in there. Then that would be for students. Staff would still have Good Friday off over spring break, they'd still be closed. So it's a little bit of nuance between staff and students on that. Then the other piece that we saw is in October, we moved the PD day out of there to December and moved the parent-teacher conferences during that month. And so that'll be, so we only have one, we got some feedback that we didn't like to have multiple, so we're missing out on care days on Mondays when we have multiple events in the same month. Parents would prefer just to have one day a month off. And then also feedback from our staff was that they would like to have that kind of same pattern. So it all worked out. So we moved the PD day to December, And then in December, we have a split week, which is the first time we've had a split week at that time, just due to the timing of when New Year's Eve is and Christmas is. And so we split the weeks there to try to balance that out. That's more consistent with what other districts are doing as well. And we're able to get out before June 1st, which I think worked out well in this year's calendar. Now, just as a reminder, we are held by state law of when we can start school. I know everyone wants us to start earlier so we can get out earlier, sort of thing. I hear that a lot. Maybe not everyone, that's probably not the right phrase, but I hear that a lot, that we want to start earlier so we don't have to go later. We are held by state law when we can start school, so we are starting just about as early as we can on there. So it has some nuances that the other calendars haven't had. Typically, the calendars have just kind of made themselves, but this one has some nuances. So we'll have a built-in snow day, then of course after that we'll have our AMI days, and then we'll have makeup days on Mondays on the calendar. I think I hit all the topics, Dr. Rice. I feel like yeah. So is there anything else? I'll be happy to answer any questions on that.
No, I like that the Christmas time break is pretty much exactly 2 weeks. Like this year's, which I love my kids. I'm truly fine with them being home as much as they are, but it's like I know for some families it would be really difficult because we have several days, I don't know, like 16, 17 days off in a row for this calendar year. It's something a lot. It's more than 2 weeks. Yeah. What do you
I don't know, every day's a Saturday for me, so.
Yeah. I might be getting that number wrong, but it's more than 2 weeks because of the way it's falling. Yeah, like 16th is their last day type thing. So.
Oh, really? Weekends, right? So
yeah. So if you're just
right.
counting like if you're just like looking at the calendar days off,
Right.
like it's a
So
lot.
yeah, that was kind of our same issue we ran into this year. So the last day would have been the 15th, and so we thought, boy, that's pretty early.
Yeah.
And then coming back on the 2nd. So anyway, just through a lot of collaboration and feedback,
I
this is
like this is what I'm saying.
our calendar that we presented.
Is there a reason, is it working out really well to have graduation like a week later?
Right, this year we kind of talked about that as well. That week before would be Memorial Day, no, it would be.
They do the Saturday after Memorial Day, because isn't Memorial Day the
Yeah.
fourth
no,
Monday?
Is it the 27th? Right, okay, yeah, so yeah, I guess we could have it on the 1st, but our always concern is we need students to finish the year and do all of that, to be a full student time in 1,044 hours. So, that's why we pushed it the week back, just in case we'd miss a month of school or something crazy. But it does work out well from setup wise. We're able to get it set up and have time to do that without disruption of school. So if we had it on that Saturday, we'd have to have it set up on Friday, and it's a pretty big job to get all that set up. So it works to have that extra time to not have to do that. So it's been the general discussion around the date of graduation.
Ready for a motion?
Yep.
I make a motion to approve the 23-24 calendar as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the 23-24 calendar as presented. Is there any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The calendar is approved. Next we have Budget Amendment 1.
Right, so this is our budget amendment of all the things we've added, like Career Ladder and those events. And so Lucy, if you wouldn't mind pulling up that. Yeah. And so you can kind of see we've kind of highlighted the big things that changed. Prop C sales tax, and since we've done our tax rate hearing, we now have a better idea of what our local taxes will estimated to be. So it's an increased revenue, about $450,000 that we're seeing increased revenue on that we believe in. So county, no change into that. Then some actual funds we've received from the state. High needs fund has increased. We actually received more money. We added Career Ladder in the revenue side for the money that we'll get for that. Then we were off on our transportation budget by about $25,000 was a guess. We thought we were gonna get 1.1 million. It's gonna be 1,075,000. So we're off just slightly there, so it's an adjustment on that. Then when we set our budget in June, we were right in the middle of finishing up all of our ESSER 3 funding. We didn't know if it was going to be in this year or the previous year, so it actually came out of last year's budget, so that adjusts the federal side on the revenue and the expense side for that. And then we've received our carryover funds for Title I, II, and IV, so we actually were able to see that change there. And then salaries and benefits, we had a career ladder, that was the big cost. Now we just put everyone that's eligible in career ladder in that, so we didn't like, oh, we're only gonna get half the staff to it or a quarter of the staff to it. We just put everybody that's eligible in the expense side and the revenue side, so that'll probably be different at the end of the year. I'm sure it will be. So then purchase services, we've just had some dues, some small things there. We changed some, transferred some funds out of a high school account. And then supplies, we had some grants that came in, and then of course ESSER 3 money to balance the change that came out of last year's accounts. And so that the expenses are actually down about 100,000. And so we're actually looking a little better than we originally projected it in June when we did the budget originally. So that's kind of where that is.
Does anybody have any questions?
No, but I have a comment. You impress me. I mean, when I was
It's
teaching.
a team effort.
I know it is, but when I was teaching, I had no clue that all this, you're impressive. Thank you for all you do for our finances and keeping us abreast of, even breaking it down to where a good old hillbilly like me understands it, so thank you.
Sure, well, if you want to get into all the details,
No,
you can
I
actually
don't.
click all expenses, budget revision, there's every line item.
That's not the committee I want to be a part of.
It's on here so you can see it.
Yeah.
So anyone can see it.
That's true.
Well, and you said that too. I mean, that's one thing that I trust it. It's transparent. Anybody can see. I mean, it's good stuff. And I just wanted to make sure that he understands how much I appreciate it. And I know the board does too, so.
We appreciate that, but really it's been a long time coming. We've been working on this transparency piece for a long time, and so it really has been a team effort to get there, so good work everybody, I guess.
Yeah.
I move that we approve the budget amendment as presented.
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the budget amendment as presented. Is there any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The budget amendment is approved. Next topic, paraprofessional pay.
Okay, so this is a highly unusual ask. What we find ourselves in is a little bit of an emergency situation, I guess, or crisis, however you want to phrase that. It's kind of where I'm starting to see our paraprofessional staffing is at. Right now, we had 14 open, so we're at 26%, but I think we had 2 hires today, so that'll be down to 22% or something in that ballpark of vacant positions that we need. Paraprofessionals are identified through the IP process that students need paraprofessionals, and then it's our legal responsibility to provide those paraprofessionals based off what the IP team tells us that we need. So we normally do a great job of trying to get those filled and get those taken care of, but what we're seeing this year is really a shortage of people. And the highly unusual part of this is changing pay rates in the middle of the year. I can't remember a time that we've ever done that. I just can't remember a time. And I can't really remember a time anyone else has done that in other school districts. But this school district, I know that this year I've seen other school districts do the exact same thing, where they've changed in the middle of the year to try to fill gaps of shortages of employees. So right now our current pay for paraprofessionals is $12 an hour. And that minimum wage, there'll be minimum wage January 1, will be $12 an hour. And so what we'd like to do is, and what I'm recommending we do is increase that to $14 an hour, be the minimum wage, and it'd be $2 for every current employee and everyone moving forward. And, why didn't we do this earlier in the year? Really, I was trying to hold the line on our processes. I believe strongly in our processes that we need to go through our negotiation agreements, go through the big team, everyone together to talk about how to do it. But as the number went from 5 to 7 to 10 to 12, I just feel like we need to take some action immediately. Because I have a feeling this is going to continue to get worse if we don't. So I just think we're in a position for paraprofessionals specifically that we need to address them right now. Paraprofessionals also play into our sub issue because we have to take subs to fill in the paraprofessional jobs, and so that makes sub shortages in our classrooms because we're just trying to get people in front of the kids and help them meet the requirements. So right now we are definitely in an emergency situation. I feel that we need to take some action to address this. But Dr. Ross has done a great job of pulling up a lot more information on this, so if you wouldn't mind pulling that, and that way we can have all that. So, Dr. Ross?
Yeah, just a little bit of context, everything that Dr. Klingon-Smith just said. So when we talk about vacancies, this just kind of shows where they're at. Now, again, had some good news today in that Rebecca Boone was able to hire 2. So Rebecca Boone is full staffed on paraprofessionals right now. But you can see where our vacancies exist outside of that and the programs that those impact. Because every building really has its own special need for paraprofessionals. Early childhood, of course, is dedicated to special education. Daniel Boone has the Elementary Essential Skills Program. 9 students just in that program that in their IEPs require a para, not necessarily a one-to-one, but they have to be with a para for certain numbers of minutes, each one of them every week. Likewise, Warrior Ridge and the ED room there, 8 students there that all require, just as a part of that program, to have an exposure to a paraprofessional. And then all of that sort of gets combined in the middle school and high school. It just becomes sort of just different elements of special education. They're obviously all in the middle school, they're all in the high school. They're not disseminated amongst, there's only one building. So, so as you can see, where we're really hurting is in Daniel Boone for the Essential Skills Program for elementary kiddos. We're at half of what we need there, and you see that the +1, what that is we have subs. Our partner EduStaff is providing paras. They basically signed on to be a full-time sub because EduStaff pays more per hour. And so they do that, they forego the benefits, things of that nature for that higher pay level to do that. And so there's one not quite full-time at Daniel Boone, and there's one full-time at the high school. So that's why you see that +1, is that they're not really our employee. So that's kind of where we're at. Again, the real deficiency is at Daniel Boone in that Essential Skills Program. And they've had to, Dr. Goldsmith has had to change the way she does things. So because students have to have access to this additional adult support. And so in order to make sure they have it, she's had to team kids together, to keep them together so they can all have that. Dr. Goldsmith's a wizard with it. Her and Dr. Brown have, they're not going to let any child not have what they need, but they need help. So the things that we've done over the course of this year, because even when we spoke over staffing at our very first board meeting of the school year, we had an issue with paras. I think we had 11 vacancies at that time. I might be off by 1 or 2, but 11 sticks out of my mind. So since then, I've tried to use Indeed.com, our social media. I've posted on MoReap. I've cold called people from all of those things. I've met a lot of interesting strangers, and even developed flyers for our openings to give out at home football games and other places. Talking to a lot of our, coming up in December, we're going to have the 180-day follow-up for our seniors that graduated last year. Anyone that reports as unemployed will soon get a phone call from me, and things of that nature. So, really, I'm not sure, and you can kind of see in that timeline down below, sort of the give and take with it. So since July, the number of applicants that have completed an application on our website and the movement that has happened there. And you can kind of see they resigned in bunches. We kind of saw that just in October as well. And both of those scheduled interviews were hired, so that's great. Even though that happened this first week of November. But and just of note as well, of the 8 that we've been able to hire since July, 4 either did not start or have since left. And so it's, as much as retention is an issue, recruitment is an issue, retention is also an issue. And so really, I just bring that up to demonstrate that. I just got this information from these school districts' websites yesterday. They're all hiring paras, and this is what they're advertising. And so, when I'm cold calling and offering, well, we started 12, commensurate with experience, it's a tough sell. It's a tough sell.
And you'll notice on that, if you go back, Brad, what we have on board docs is what, like Winsville's advertising $14.89, but they were at $12.85 is what they still have posted as their agreed to salary. So they took action to increase that pay outside of their normal processes, apparently, to increase that rate.
I'm not sure, I didn't check with them why they had that, but that was on their posting. And then I just show this to show, compared to our other classified departments. Again, when we spoke at the beginning of the school year, there were vacancies in these other areas too, and there are still some. We could use 4 more custodians, we could use 5 more food service, either cooks or lunchroom monitors across the district, and we could use 3 more bus drivers. But they're not at the levels that our paraprofessionals are at. So I just bring it up to show that.
And just to talk a little bit about the finances on this, because we've had so much open, if these 14 positions would remain open all year, it'd be about $300,000 that we wouldn't spend out of the budget. Now, will all these vacancies, if we increase it, fill in tomorrow? No, so we're still gonna have openings throughout until we can hopefully get everybody in. So we're about a third way through the year. The cost for the increase for an annual year would be $150,000. So a third of that's $50,000, so it leaves us with about potentially $100,000 left that it would cost us this year. And just the funding from not paying the people we have this year, it should be a budget neutral event, I would think, for this year. But the concern something we have to be aware of is moving forward. And so would this limit us moving forward? And so that's something we'll just have to work through, and what packages we want to offer next year to the rest of the staff and all staff. So things to consider, it is a reassessment year. We are believing that reassessment is occurring. We're seeing a lot of growth in the community, but we can run those numbers as we go forward. But for this fiscal year, I'm not anticipating it making too big of an impact on what we've already have budgeted, because we have so many open positions that we're not paying.
So back to your +1 that you were talking about. I mean, before I became a board member, I was an employee of EduStaff. So they are not, of course, that's just a daily rate, but no insurance, no benefits.
Correct.
And that's what you're saying in this situation.
No
So everybody
contribution to
understands.
retirement.
So everybody, right, no contribution to retirement. So but the important thing that you're saying is they're making more money per hour. So therefore, if we can get closer to that, plus the benefits, plus the paying in the retirement, that should hopefully entice somebody to step over that. I mean, I think it's.
Well, if not, then hopefully we can get paras and that person can be a sub somewhere else. So
Right.
that would help us in a lot.
Well, and that's been my biggest concern from the time I got on the board back in April, and I mentioned it right off the bat. My biggest concern, I don't want to say complaint, my biggest concern was about subbing, and how we just subbing it's tough, and I know it's not gotten a lot of better, and some of our CSIP goals are not being probably met because of the issues that we're having with this event right here. It's finding people, because we're taking people out of where they should be working on reading or whatever. We're moving them from here to there to fill in, because by law we have to do this and this. And like you said, the administrators are doing a great job, and the team players in elementary are amazing. I married an elementary teacher; they're amazing. I could not do it myself. But at the same time, it's a big concern, and I think this is gonna elevate us to the point where hopefully this will help out and take care of some other issues that are linked to this problem. See, get where I'm going with that?
I hope so.
Yeah.
So you're saying you want to keep teachers in the classroom and not have to pull, like, the reading instruction coaches and stuff like that, to pull them out of their classrooms? And like, so you're just wanting to cover the sub situation, cover the para situation, so teachers can be with the kids,
Right.
paras can be with the kids,
Right.
reading sessions can be with the kids, everyone can just be in their spots.
Yeah, I mean, I still, you know, I've been retired 8 years, I still think it's a problem that we're taking teachers out of the classroom. And that's number one thing that is important to a kid's education, is that teacher in the classroom. I think everything else is beside the point. Whatever we can do to get the teachers in the classroom, and if hiring paras and making it more, you know, like, he hit the nail on the head. I work a part-time job at minimum wage, so when minimum wage goes up to $12 an hour, you're gonna get a raise. Well, these folks are gonna be at $12 an hour, they're gonna take a pay cut, you know? I know it doesn't seem that way, but really it is in your head psychologically, so I think it's something that we must do. I'm highly in favor.
So I have concerns about doing this outside of the negotiation process, which you verbalized that too, Greg.
Yeah, the same concerns.
And I have a concern about doing it for one group of hourly employees and not the others. But we saw from the numbers that this is our biggest deficit in employees. You know, it's our group that has the most openings. And I also know that these people who are paraprofessionals are directly working with our kids all day long, with, you know, sometimes assigned to one student or a very small group of students. And I know how important they are in meeting those goals for the IEPs. And my concern is also, if we don't do something, I'm afraid we're going to lose more, because like Brad said, it's not just hiring but retention too. So I feel really conflicted about this, because it bothers me to do things out of order. It bothers me to think about deficit spending more. But at the same time, I see the great need, and it concerns me that we're not meeting that need. And it concerns me that we're paying anybody that small an amount, honestly, and they're not the only ones. I wish we could give everybody a raise. I mean, in the middle of the year, if it was possible, I would love to be able to do that, but it's not possible. So I'm torn.
Well, I would just add one more comment. A great man told me one time that, and he was actually on this board at one time, said, if you're gonna make an error on the side of kids. And so therefore, that's how I believe.
I think all the positions are directly affecting kids in one way or another.
Yeah.
Just because, I'm kind of with you, I don't want to go out of process. Everything has process. And what kind of precedence does this set moving forward with other groups that become understaffed? Because I could see an argument with transportation and maintenance and all of that, and those groups are somewhat being, not penalized, but they're not being, compensated appropriately, either. Just because this one subset is low on numbers, they're the ones getting the benefit or getting the reward, if you will. So, I don't know if I would say I would be looking for a more comprehensive plan for all the hourly employees or whatever, but it just seems not disorganized, because it's very well put together, but it seems like it's a reactive situation, which it is, and that's what I don't like. I don't like reactive situations. So that I have troubles too approving this and what precedent that would set moving forward, and the other groups that aren't compensated correctly.
Correct, yeah, that is my really only concern, is that we've not followed our standard process, which we've established for the few years to get here, for sure. That's weighed on me heavily as well.
Can we,
Go ahead.
I was gonna just say, can we offer like a sign-on bonus rather than a $2 an hour raise?
Well, we do sign-on bonuses now. We have a $250 sign-on bonus for any hourly employee that's been referred to us from another employee. And I do believe that there's, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Ross, is there an hourly employee sign-on bonus? Yeah, there is, just straight up, I believe that. Kind of was foggy on that, but yeah, there is that in place now.
Is there a way to increase that amount in place?
Well, that was again a negotiated item that we talked through, so again, we got a process, but we could do whatever we'd like to do.
It doesn't really help with retention.
It would if you put in the contract.
Well,
You have to sit for when you, or whatever.
right, but at the moment, you know, all these people have resigned since July. We keep losing people. It's like,
Well, and I
And
think.
are we losing them because of more money somewhere else?
So not all of them pick up the phone when I call to do the follow-up. Several, but multiple of the resignation letters do speak to money directly. The common theme is, I love being here, but I can make, even a recent one, said $4 or $5 down the road.
Is that another pair or is that something else that they're going after?
It was very, well, I guess I don't know that, but I believe it was.
Well, this is completely tied to the IEPs. I mean, this is where this critical concern came from. And when we're talking IEPs, we're talking about, you know, that's out of our control.
If we do this now though, then when it comes time for negotiations, is that another $1 or so that could get added on?
Well, sure, anything can happen through negotiations. I wouldn't want to go into negotiations without good faith, but I would think that we can make a case that, you know, your raise just came early, but I don't want to necessarily say that won't happen or will happen. We definitely want to negotiate in good faith with our work groups, but that is a possibility.
So at the risk of sounding extremely cold, but we are deficit spending already. Rich, you mentioned IEPs are out of our control. We don't do anything, let's say we don't do anything, leave it as it is, and we stay where we're at from a para numbers perspective. Are there financial risks to the district for doing that?
Financially, sure. I mean, we could be sued and have to pay if we didn't meet the standards of the IEP. That would be a financial risk that we would take. I don't know what that cost would be. It could just be an OCR complaint, and they just tell us, you now have to find a para and make sure you're providing para. So it could be just minimal legal fees, or they could be larger potentially. But that would be the financial risk of this.
Of not having one-on-one where needed.
Where needed, and particularly if we would continue to see more people leave.
Right.
And then we can't replace those down the road.
And we're talking about teacher, sorry about that.
Oh, I just wanted to hear from Mr. Weeks. He seemed like he had something he wanted to say.
I was gonna address, in the last year, we've lost several paras, and they went to other districts to be paraprofessional, just because of the pay. They're good paraprofessionals, they're still in that role, so I was just gonna.
Thank you for that information.
Well,
To tag on to the legal portion real quick.
Yes, sir.
Have we thought about legal implications of the opposite? That we're rewarding a group outside of negotiations, because I could see labor law issues potentially with that as well.
Potentially, but we're not bound under, they're associations, not, and we just collectively bargain. The agreement is to collectively bargain annually, which we did in good faith. And so the board can now do whatever they would like to do outside of that. And we've seen this action taking place in other districts across the state and just down the road. It's happened all over, and there's not been any issues with that. and for individual groups, I know like St. Charles just gave pairs a raise.
Right.
That sort of thing. So I'm not too concerned on that end. But, you know, can anybody sue for anything? Sure.
Of course.
Right, sure.
I was gonna mention too, you know, you talked about your big thing from the convention we went to was teacher retention. I've had teachers call me and cry, they're broken, they're stressed, because they are taken out of their classrooms to sub on a daily basis, and it's breaking them. And to the point where talking of leaving the district, and I don't want that to happen. And if this is something simple that could help, not guaranteeing that that's not gonna help it, but at the same time, I think it's showing good faith that we gotta step out of our boundaries sometimes and be forward thinking. And but I mean, I respect everything that was said in that too. I know the process and that's not my thing, but I understand it. I respect it.
I know that the role is powerful for students. I know it's a role that if a parent is a child of a student that is needing that service, like that parent is relying on that parent to be an advocate for the kid, to connect with the kid, to help them gain understanding, and the teachers are relying on the para. At times, that para is the one that the kid trusts to de-escalate when they're getting upset. I've seen paras, as a substitute teacher, I've seen paras take a lot and love a kid through it. And so I know that it is a very important position in our district. I think, like, for me, my concern is the finances, and specifically like forecasting. Next year, we're at $14 an hour, and we are still having the same issue. Like what do we do? Like what? Like that. I know that other districts, whenever I was at the conference, there were larger, way bigger budgeted districts that are in this exact same scenario, and they're holding hiring fairs, and they're trying to do all these things, and they are struggling to fill these positions as well. And so it's not that I'm so negative that I don't think that this would do anything. It's that I don't know if it'll be enough, and that's my fear. Because I want these positions filled. Like I want this to happen. So I do appreciate all the efforts, though. I'm grateful that you like really detailed the other things, the cold calls and all that. Like that matters to me as a board member to know that it's not just, oh, let's just put some more money into it. That no, we're trying to do what we can.
I know Dr. Ross isn't alone on that. I think all of our building principals are doing. Any person
sure.
that they talk to, like, hey, would you like to be a paraprofessional? You know, we got an opening. You know, so I think that's anybody, all networks that we're reaching out to that we can connect with or trying to recruit.
Yeah, I was trying to recruit someone just because I knew that they were interested in education, and I was like, hey, you can go to do our Pathways for Paras program, and you can be getting your undergrad for free. And so I know I'm trying to sell it because I know it's a worthwhile career.
And not to open another can of worms on this, though, but the payroll timelines, just the logistically of getting a payroll time. And if the motion could say starting November 7th, that would be we'll have less errors on anything, if it would pass. Like I said, I don't know if it's going to pass or not, but just in the motion, if we could say November 7th to be the start time of that, because we have to change it during the beginning and end of the payroll period.
Well, this is a tough one. I guess the most crucial thing for me is that we are able to implement the IEPs as they're intended to help students. A second part of it is we often hear that teachers are stressed and need support, and they just have so many things on their plate. If you're a classroom teacher that is supposed to have a para in there helping a student and they're not in there, then you have assumed an extra role with that student. So it does put an additional stress on the regular classroom teacher too. You feel like the money is there for this year, but the concern would be people would still want that amount of money next year, and that's where your concern comes in?
Sure, once we put the salary schedule in place, that's the salary schedule moving forward. And so this year, I'm not concerned about the budget, because we have so many unfilled positions, it's gonna be neutral. But you know, it'll be next year, and we can definitely break down revenue that we're gonna receive next year and all of that, and when we meet before negotiations, it's like coming here, what package we'd like to offer staff for next year, and what we can do and can't do.
That's where I'm concerned, because now it's gonna be this is gonna be the standard across the board, and that's what district-wide, everybody's gonna be looking for $2 an hour, and I don't wanna, I'm not saying it's not deserving, we've been in budget crunches I've been here for almost 6 years, and it's been a budget crunch ever since.
Okay.
So, and like you guys had mentioned, we're already deficit spending, so it's really outside of the process that we typically have. Plus just kind of looking at what's gonna happen next year, foreseeing that, those expectations. And just this one, being able to afford that one, deficit spending already, and add another 150,000 estimated on top of that. And I get it, this is a very important position, just like all of them in our district. But I'm having a hard time justifying this at this time.
Yeah, it feels like several of us are saying the same thing, right? If we have the money, absolutely, it's an important position, it's the right thing to do. The problem is, just like it has been for years, we don't have the money, unfortunately.
And this doesn't fall in anywhere for ESSER?
No, I mean, no, we've already identified those funds and.
Well, right, and the point is, in future years, really,
Correct.
because right now, like you said, it's gonna be a wash. It's not really gonna
Sure.
put us any further behind, because we have so many unfilled positions.
And we have in the past, through the process, giving bigger raises to different groups. Like last year, transportation went from $14.85 to
Right.
$17. And the other groups just got up to minimum wage.
Right.
What will be minimum wage this year, $12. And so it's not uncommon for us to give different groups different wage amounts based on the need, because last year's need was transportation, very largely. But again, we went through the process on that to develop that. But right now, I'm just very, very concerned what's going to happen the rest of the year if people keep leaving. So that's why, and like, I'm exactly the same place all of you are. I wrestled with this a lot before I brought this recommendation forward, and I'm just very concerned what's going to happen in the future if we don't take some action.
I would be more open to seeing the use of the funds that we have budgeted for this year, whether it's sign-on bonuses or something to that effect.
Well, that's an interesting idea. Okay, so let's kind of talk about that maybe. I don't have this together, but if we wanted to go in a different direction, a stipend of some sort could be issued. I would need to do some research on that though, and for this year.
Because if we were to, okay, so we have twofold here. We have people that we want to recruit and bring on board. And then we have people that are here that I know of at least a couple that have went 7 minutes down the road and can do the same job and make a lot more money. So we have both recruiting and retaining the people we have. Would a stipend, Roger, what do you think about a stipend for people that are already here to kind of retain them? Would that work, or are you only looking at new hires?
I really haven't thought that far. I mean, it just popped out,
Sure.
stipend. But I'm open to anything. I'm just open to using the funds that are currently budgeted. So like when we do negotiate, like next year, when we're looking at negotiations and that whole process, we can forecast what that looks like for us throughout the year, right? And so without that information in front of us, those funds aren't in front of us right now, and we don't have those projections in front of us. But what we do have to work with is this money that we haven't spent due to the law. So I'm more open to working with those funds than I am future funds.
Is this something that we could have as a work session topic?
We could, yeah, it just delays the pay of the staff, obviously, but we definitely could. And one idea might be to take those extra funds and just distribute those to staff that are here that month. And that logistically with payroll, I'm just not 100% sure how much we could actually do.
Right.
Like on paper, I was talking about, sure, it sounds great, but logistically making it happen gets a little bit tricky.
Right.
But not impossible. No, nothing's impossible.
Right.
We just have some new people in payroll that everyone's still getting off the ground, going.
I'm not trying to make it more difficult, but.
No, but I like the thinking. I like thinking, something that might work for this year and then go through the process. I think that's a good idea. Just a matter of how do we make it go.
I did the easy part, now you gotta do.
Yeah, right, exactly, right. Well, I'd like to send something out that we'll be working on increasing pay for the year, and I think everybody wants to do that with the funds that we have. Is there any dissension from that idea?
Yeah, I think I'm just hesitant on establishing that this is the new pay rate without a process. And since we aren't gonna roll it back, we're not going to.
Right.
Oh, no,
do it
absolutely
and
not.
roll it
Right,
back.
you
And
can't
so
do that.
I wanna be confident about the number that we're doing, and not just do $2.
Sure.
I would want
But-
to know.
But if we could use the money that we already haven't spent the first
Sure.
third of the year
Mhm.
because of the vacancies,
Right.
to give a one-time stipend
Mhm.
to try to help us maintain, retain all the people we have now, and then
Right.
if we can hire some more.
Because roughly I'm thinking it'd be about $2,000 annually for an individual. Just kind of the math we have here is roughly $2,000, maybe $2,400.
And
So it'd
then,
be $200 a month essentially pay that we could give each individual. So 2,400 divided by 12 is 200, right? But they only work 10 months, so we're looking at $240 a month for each individual. If they work a month, they'd get an extra $240. But I need to do a little research on what we can actually give a stipend for. I think there might have to do a little extra. We can't just say, here's your extra money, it's not on a pay scale, but we're just giving it to you. So if you work a month, we can give you an extra $240 for every month that you work, if you've done XYZ thing. I think that can make sense to help us. So we can tell people it's $12 an hour plus a $240 stipend every month.
that they stay.
If they stay the month, they get the pay.
Yeah.
Or can you extend it to the end of the school year?
But I would like to give people a monthly amount, probably.
I see. Okay.
Just so that, hey, you're seeing something here,
Mhm.
and it's helping paying your bills,
Mhm.
I'm just going off the numbers that are on the agenda here, which is 14 of the 53 are open, which is 26.4. So assuming, and I know that there's vibrations in that, right? But the 26% for a third of the year already would make 8% of that budget available, right? I mean, technically, if we were to hire all of the openings
Right.
tomorrow,
Right.
Mhm.
we would still have 8% of that total budget for paras.
Right, there's about 100,000, is about the head, in my head, it's about $100,000, so I'm seeing it, so they've been open all year, so it's about a third of the budget, or almost all year, not all of them, but just about. So when you run the numbers, it's about $300,000 total for the year, divide that by a third, so it's $100,000. So we got about $100,000 to work with. We need 50 people, so that's $2,000. Did I do that right? I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Seems right.
so yeah, we'll keep coming back to that around $2,000 number. So we can use that $2,000 number, start working on it. So maybe $200 a month stipend.
And also, I wondered if paying the stipend monthly, like you were talking about, would that help with the payroll issue? You were worried about how that payroll.
Well, I think it'd be easier if it was in a monthly time because it'd be routine, and most importantly, it gives our employees monthly revenue coming in.
And then we do, as part of the negotiations, we talk about what can we do for next year
Correct.
and going forward.
Right.
Because we know we have a shortage and a problem
Right.
of recruiting and retaining, so that definitely needs to be a part of the negotiations.
Speaking on behalf of the former teacher, again, we're gonna get back into the, do I trust this board? Tomorrow morning in the teacher's lounge, do I trust this board is another slap to my face. If you've never been a para, I've subbed for a para. Oh my gosh. You know, I respect the bus drivers. I've spent a lot of time on those buses, traveled thousands and thousands of miles with my bus drivers and love them everyone. And they do such a great job. The cooks, you can look at me, I have been good friends with the cooks for many years, and they do a wonderful job. But that para, from the time that bell rings until the time that bell, and actually a lot of them before the bell even rings, they have to be there and stay until they're done or whatever, and no breaks, and no, in between classes you still see them walking the halls or whatever their role is. It is absolutely a thankless job, but it is so important for the success of our schools and for the success of those kids. And you mentioned the parents and how they rely on that. We're splitting hairs over money, and I know that you guys are, I'm new to this process and I'm new to this board, but it just breaks my heart that we can't be forward thinking.
Well, I think that's exactly what we're doing. We're
Well, I
forward-thinking
agree
on
that you're at
our
least
things.
coming up with a difference. I think, I respect that you guys are coming up with something different. Personally, I just don't think it's I'm just saying.
I don't think there's a debate on whether or not that's an important position or not.
No, I agree with you, but I just think
But
that.
to go back to your point about trusting the board, I think if we made the motion tonight, then we'll do a $200 stipend for paras at the end of the month, and then I'd figure out how actually, what's required of that stipend. They might have to do a little extra somewhere, somehow, but we could figure that out. It might be that they have to answer some questions we send out or do something to earn the stipend.
I
But
mean, it could be like questions about like retention. It
Right.
could be like specific to us trying to figure out as a district like how to retain.
Right, and the big issue is they're hourly employees, so exempt employees, it's easy, sure. Do the thing, you get a stipend. Now hourly employees, we still have to follow the Fair Labor Standards Act rules and laws and make sure we're doing all that correctly, but that can be up to us, but we can tell them that, well, we're gonna start paying you $200 a month more, and then that's up to me to figure out, and Dr. Ross, how to make that go.
So
You know.
would the direction from the board be that a dollar amount, a specific dollar amount, or would it be to utilize the funds in excess that we haven't used yet?
Well, I think it'd probably be easier if we did a dollar amount, because then it gets to be a lot of variables in the payroll side. Because we've had the same kind of conversation with other work groups as I've been kind of thinking about what we could do in negotiations. Okay, if someone doesn't show up that day, everyone gets an extra $1 an hour or whatever, as we divide that out. But I just don't know logistically we can handle that in payroll correctly.
Right.
$200 would be easy for someone to check and know that they've got it or not.
Yeah.
Because if we did 50 paras times, it'd be about $100,000 this year, and that's about what
I
we're.
mean, you're good at math and I trust you. It's just like, we're reacting, right? And it'd be
Yeah.
nice if there was a little bit of study, a little bit of homework
Sure.
done before we came up with a dollar amount, if you will. So that's why I thought if we could just agree to use those excess funds.
Maybe, yeah, say maybe not to exceed or a maximum of $100,000,
Gotcha.
and then we can figure it out from there. Because moving forward, it's going to be less than $200,000.
Right.
So yeah, but if we want to send a message that we're going to use $100,000 of this budget to pay stipends to paras, then we'll figure it out on our end how to make that go.
And you're comfortable with that $100,000 number?
I'm very comfortable with that number. Yeah.
And
Very
that's
comfortable.
just
And then it will come in front of the
expenses that
negotiation.
haven't been used.
This would not.
No, I'm not, then
Right, then we go through the
telling
process.
them up front that we're gonna negotiate next year with a new package of what we can
Mhm.
maybe offer for
Right.
everybody.
What we do for, and then just here's how all the
Sure.
work out. And some groups might get more, some might get less. But that's why we meet as a big team, all work groups together, so everyone can see the need of the district and realize, okay, paras probably need more than other groups or whatever. So, but, you know, again, that's negotiated. We want to go in good faith, and I'm not saying one way or the other how it's going to be, but, you know, that will be the process. But we could then say, due to the shortage of the money for this pay group, we're going to allocate $100,000 to pay a monthly stipend to paras. I think that's very doable. And $100,000 I'm very, very comfortable with. It's probably higher.
I mean, quick math, I just did 45 paras times 200 a month times 8 months is 72,000.
Right, yeah, so it might be a little bit more than $200, maybe $220.
And we don't have
We don't have
8 months
45.
left
Right, that's going through
in
June.
the district,
I guess-
in the school year, so.
I was more concerned that there is $100,000 left in the budget.
Oh,
You're comfortable with that?
absolutely, absolutely.
We haven't spent $100,000.
Yes, absolutely, that's for sure. Because we know we're not gonna fill these positions immediately either, so we're gonna continue to have unfilled positions, yeah.
I just want to speak into what you're saying, Rich. So a portion of us on this board, it's so recent. It was just 2 years ago that we had to cut over $1 million of stuff. And so like, I still feel that wound. And so I, like, as we had a portion of time where we had ESSER funds and we were able to like meet huge needs like facility or program or staffing needs, and like that was just such a relief to know that we were able to meet some needs without feeling the hurt. And so I just never would want to do something again. I just am, that's why I'm so cautious, and I think other members are as well. Like, I know what that felt like, and it was horrible. And so that's why you're seeing the hesitation, is because of 2 years ago.
And I can remember my first couple years, things would come, right? And, you know, they would, oh, well, it's only 100,000, it's only 50,000. But it added up over the year, and before you know it, and I just don't ever want to get into that
Nobody
position.
ever wants to go back there.
No.
Well, but some of those
sure.
decisions, we're shooting ourselves in the foot too, that it was because of the decisions that the board made that caused us to get in those positions as well.
And I don't want
and
that to
and I agree with that, but we're talking need versus.
Well, there was very justified needs for each one of those, and everybody came in and told their very sad story, why they needed it and why it was so important. And yeah, like you said, okay, well, all right, it's only 50,000, you know, and it's easy to do, and I'm just not.
Right, I think this is a good idea. Like I said, I've been wrestling with this a long time too. I'm like, great idea. That's why the board worked together as a team to come up with ways to solve problems. You know, I think going through the process is the best thing that we can do. And we say we're not going to expend more than we already have that budgeted for this group this year. Then next year we can look and see what we can do. Is I think something that'll go over well. They're going to see some more money in their paychecks. I think it'll be positive.
One of the most important things we can do as a board is operate within a budget. And that budget should be set at the, you know, that's our budget, right? And
right.
That's one of the most important things we can do. I mean, that's what households have to do. We need to do the same. I'd like to make a motion.
What's that gonna say?
Or, I should say, are you gonna make a motion? Do we have to make a motion on this one first?
It's not been put out there.
No, nothing's there.
That's a recommended action, so. I would like to make a motion that we approve the use of $100,000, correction, up to $100,000 of the excess.
It would be excess. I'd just say allocate $100,000
of the current budget funds for stipends to paraprofessionals.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to allocate up to $100,000 for stipends for paraprofessionals
Can we add that just for the end of this year?
until the end of this year.
Yes.
School year. Right.
This fiscal year, correct?
Is that okay, Rod?
Yep.
Good clarification.
Yes, thank you.
Is that your second?
That's my second.
No,
Jeff already did.
Jeff seconded.
That's-
Oh, Jeff seconded.
Yeah,
I
we
second that
seconded.
too.
We're just,
Okay, that's my
I
amendment to this
approve and
amendment.
approve.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments before the vote? I do think it was a good way to increase the pay for the paras without locking us into something that we may not be able to do next year. So I thought we were very creative, and I understand Rich's concern. We want to invest in people long-term, but I also understand the budget concerns that we have, and we don't want to get in a situation where we're locked into something next year that we can't afford.
I truly believe every person on this board would give every district employee a $5,000 raise if we have the money, right? I mean, there's no doubt about it, right? We understand our staff is
I'd
underpaid
second that and
for what
third
we
it
do,
and
but-
whatever.
Yeah.
Is there any?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, we have 6 and 1 opposed. Sarah, did you get that? The motion passes. Okay, we had a patron agenda item that we're going to postpone.
Yes, the person had a family emergency, wasn't able to make it tonight, so we will push that back till December.
Okay. We do not have any policy first reads. So that brings us to miscellaneous, which we had celebrations, which we've already kind of talked about the MSBA conference, and I just really appreciate that opportunity to network and talk to people within our own board, but also from boards across the state. Does anybody have something else to celebrate in the district?
The FFA, some of the FFA members went trick-or-treating for food for Agape's Food Pantry, and they brought us over 840 pounds of food. So I think that's probably going to become an annual thing because it was really successful. And it's a great need right now. We see new clients all the time. So I appreciate those young people taking the lead to try to help us out and help their neighbors in the community.
And that was right after they got back from a convention too. I mean, that was.
Yes, they had just
I
gotten
know they-
back from national convention.
I talked to a lot of the kids and they really enjoyed that and their sponsors did a great job with that trip too. I'd like to recognize Maddie Marshall and Wyatt Claiborne. They represented the school district last week at the state championship cross-country meets. It was Maddie's 4th year in a row of qualifying for the state, and that's a huge accomplishment. And so shout out to their coaching. They did a great job and represented the community and the school district and their families. So shout out to those guys.
This week has been a big week for elementaries with the parent-teacher conferences, and I can only speak about my experience at Warrior Ridge, but this week, that building has done parent-teacher conferences, the book fair, awards assemblies, and this Friday they have the Veterans Day breakfast and assembly, and I just have been blown away by how hard they've been working to engage community and engage the parents and celebrate the work that the students are doing, and not just the work that they're doing, but the attitudes and the attributes that these kids have. They have been working tirelessly to really have this positive culture, and I know that that is not unique, like only that Warrior Ridge is doing that. I know that the other elementary buildings, Daniel Boone and Rebecca Boone, you see it constantly online and in the newspaper, how they are celebrating the leaders and the students that are just giving forth their best effort. And so I can't imagine how they have planned all these things, but just they're working so hard to celebrate these kids.
And you mentioned Veterans Day. Shout out to Dr. Ross and all the other teachers former teachers and teachers that we have now that have given so selflessly to defend our country and the rights that we have. And so shout out to those guys for tomorrow's Happy Veterans Day.
And we have Wizard of Oz going on. We're missing it right now, right now, but it is tomorrow and Saturday.
Okay, our next item is work session topics.
The only thing I had was negotiations to start that work, but we could wait on that until January if we wanted to, and actually would help us with have our insurance numbers at that point, and we'll have a better hopefully have a better picture of what we actually receive from the county. So I don't necessarily have anything for the December work session, but we definitely will have to have one in January. So whichever one you want to have. Sort of.
Do we typically have work sessions in December?
We have them scheduled, but we've canceled them.
Yeah, I think we do it a lot earlier in the month.
Right.
than we sometimes
Yes, the
have
first
work sessions.
Thursday,
Right.
the second Thursday, we have a regular meeting.
Right.
But we could definitely cancel it, unless there's a pressing issue that we need to address.
Instead of we're canceling.
Yeah.
There's no reason to meet if we don't need to meet.
Right, I'm with you there.
Okay, so we will not have a work session in December unless somebody jumps up and says they want to.
That done.
Okay, next we're gonna set our next regular meeting.
I move to set the next regular meeting of the Board of Education for December 8th, 2022.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second for setting the next regular meeting for December 8th, is that right?
Yes.
Correct.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, then we need to set the closed session.
I move we set the closed session to immediately precede the regular December 8th, 2022 meeting.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to have the closed session to immediately precede the regular December meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So we have our closed session. Now, what about adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.